I'm not going to go through this in great detail. I'm not going to pretend that I'm a East African specialist. That's a little bit of a cheat, but given the laudable job that Mark Bowden has done in dealing with this issue, I'm directing you to the website, as I've just mentioned, and would like you to go through the narrative that Bowden gives you in background. I'm going to touch on one or two key points in the context of this lecture and get you to think about what is actually happening at the time in the leading up immediately to the events of Black Hawk Down. Now, we find in, I think, January 1991 that Mohammed Said Barre is overthrown as the leader of Somalia. And what results is a period of clan warfare across Somalia as a whole. Now, most prominent of the warlords who emerge from that particular process is Mohammed Farah Aidid, who I mentioned before. He headed up, I think it was the United Somalian Congress, or USC. Now, the nature of the clan warfare was such that by April of 1992, a major international relief effort was needed. Such was the disruption to the normal activity of the country that you had thousands, hundreds of thousands, starving to death. Again, I mentioned the issues of Ethiopian relief in the 1980s. That was a natural disaster. I think when we're dealing with Somalia, we need to mix that up with the propensity of human beings to go to war with each other, which isn't a deliberate theme of this course, but seems to be lying underneath many of the things we're doing. So, the United Nations United Nations revolution will be very interesting, actually, but the United Nations resolution 751 involved the deployment of 550 military personnel, principally from Pakistan, and were there to help distribute about $20 million US of food aid. So there was a two-stage process. Firstly, the nature of the warfare saw relief efforts being hampered as the various competing clans were stealing the food that was provided. Followed up, in this case, with the United Nations trying to provide armed guards to ensure that the Somalians who needed the aid were actually getting them, as opposed to filling the bellies of the militiamen who were participating in the warfare at the time. By December of 1992, events had escalated to the degree that George Bush Sr. committed 25,000 troops to the UN support for Somalia, to the relief of poverty and famine in this particular war-strewn environment. And that particular episode is known, or the operation is known as Restore Hope. Now, I'm just going to take you through to a timeline provided by the Public Broadcasting Service in America, and you can follow that up in your own time, but I just want to draw your attention to this now. To give you a more detailed chronology, I think it's worth you going to this PBS website. It gives you very concise and detailed information about the long view of what was happening in Somalia. The principal events that we're going to be dealing with in detail as part of today's lecture are actually covered by two relatively brief paragraphs. So we have to put into context what happens with the Battle of Mogadishu in 1993 within a longer period of hostilities and bloodshed in the Horn of Africa. And just remember that the focus around this is the loss of American lives, which draws attention to it in the American media. Okay. Now, there is one part of the peacekeeping operation. So this is a relief operation in June of 1993 that gave an indication of the willingness of the warlords and the militiamen to resist external interference. 24 Pakistani troops were massacred, ambushed and killed in early June of 1993. And I'm going to take just a quick pause here and go to a newspaper report of what was going on in the immediate aftermath of that. Now, I'm referencing this back to the Independent newspaper. This comes, I think, from the 8th of June in 1993 online. And again, you'll have this URL to go and look at yourself. The most polite way that I can describe what happened to the Pakistani troops was that they were massacred and then mutilated. We're going to be dealing with some instances of quite disturbing images that came out of the Battle of Mogadishu, but I'm not even going to attempt to describe in detail nor show you what happened to these Pakistan servicemen who were trying to aid relief under the auspices of the UN. It gives you an idea from the reporting, etc., of some of the discretion that was shown at the time in the Western media more generally, what was shown, what was reported. The horrific defilement of these troops is one way of putting it, and to a certain degree was a rather horrible forbearance of what was going to happen with the Battle of Mogadishu, or rather what was going to happen if Mohammed Farah Aidid could actually isolate a group of UN or American forces. And unfortunately, that's what happened on the 3rd and 4th of October of 1993. Just to give you a general view of where we are in the world with Somalia, this is a UN map that you can download. Again, I'll give you the URLs in the course for this. We have Ethiopia, Kenya. Most of the major activities around here is Mogadishu and the airport, and most of what we're going to be focusing on for the Black Hawk Down segment specifically is going to be around there. And just to give you a more general positioning of this, of course I can't operate a mouse in the right direction. Here is just a little globe highlighting where Somalia is within Africa more generally. So it gives you a reasonable idea of the environs and the area of the world we're working with. But quite importantly, from the media reporting, events are happening many hours in advance of Eastern Standard Time in the United States.